Hi there, I'm Mike.
And I'm Norb.
And we're the Watchmen.
The men who watch.
If it's on a screen, we're watching and talking about it with you.
And today, what we're going to talk about are the 5 TV shows you have to watch.
And also, we appreciate you watching us. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps us out.
All right. So let's just get right into it. I'll start with my first show. The show that I'm watching right now is on Netflix, and it's called Ozarks. And this is a show starring Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. And this is a gritty, very violent. It's very mature. So definitely probably not for the kids. But as adults, this is the kind of stuff that just... When I first started watching this show, it grabbed me from episode 1, and I was in immediately. It wasn't a slow build. I got right into it. And it's a story about Jason Bateman's family, they're the Bird family, and he's laundering money for a Mexican cartel. And basically everything goes crazy where he lives in Chicago. So they go down to the Ozarks in Missouri to basically try to start a new life down there. But they cannot escape their drug lord crime world, and it follows them down there, and it just becomes one crazy thing after another. But it's definitely addicting, and they just released the 3rd season, which I binge watched in a 24-hour period, believe it or not. So I love that show, and now I'm ready to watch the next one. It'll probably be another year before it comes out. So Ozarks, my first one on the list.
You know, not to break off too much, but I think this is worthy of bringing up. We were talking about this the other day. You've gotten better at this than I am, but one thing that's been hard for me is I've always approached watching shows in episodic TV even, where I like to watch it on my home theater and my surround system, where I feel like it's a movie and it's big screen. But when it comes to getting through so much stuff out there, you've done a good job learning to watch things on your phone and letting the quality go and being willing to not think I have to watch this in front of my big TV because I'll never get through this stuff.
Yeah, I was able to watch this show in such a short time period because I was basically in my office right here working on organizing financial stuff and things like that while the movie was playing above the monitor that I was working on. So I was probably watching half the time, but listening the entire time. But if I didn't do it this way, I would never get around to watching half these shows that I do. So it's kind of my own way of being able to get through stuff while multitasking. So it is part of, I think, in this day and age, if you want to watch it, you got to find whatever way you can. Helps right now since we're at home a lot right now, but it's a great show. It wasn't like I didn't want to watch it. I could put it down, so it was pretty solid.
Well, a show that's on my list that I actually think you really do have to look at on the screen is the remake of Battlestar Galactica. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's on your list, but I think that is a must-watch show. It doesn't matter if you were into the 1980s version of Battlestar Galactica. The modern remake that was actually done in the late 2000s holds up great today, and I can't say enough how great it is. When I was watching it for the first time, I had moments that I had felt when I saw Star Wars for the first time, and I told you that because I talked you into watching the show, and I was so convinced you need to see it, I just bought you the discs.
Yeah.
And
I remember, that this show was not on my list because I was kind of going off of shows that we're sort of watching now or very recently. I remember trying to watch the very premiere of that series and just didn't quite get into it, and I wish I had because I think I would have learned to love it, but I took a hiatus from it, didn't stick with it, and then you got into it, encouraged me to watch it, got me the discs, and then I did, and then I was so glad I jumped back on because the series was really a good twist on the old Battlestar Galactica. And Mike and I are both, diehard fans of the original late 70s Battlestar Galactica, being at that time sci-fi was just coming out with Star Wars, and Battlestar Galactica was the next thing we could grab a hold of. And it's very different. They changed a lot. They changed some male characters to female characters, and obviously they modernized everything, but the biggest thing that they did was they really enhanced the story and made it to where instead of sort of the cheesy 80s, 70s dialogue, it was very deep in a way that you expect episodics to be. It just happens to take place in the sci-fi world. So yeah, you got to see it. It's very cool. You don't have to be, I don't even think you have to be a sci-fi like nerd to enjoy the show. You can be just general, drama and action lover, and you'll enjoy it. So Battlestar Galactica, good choice. All right, so my next one is a Netflix show called Lock and Key, and it's based on a comic book series, and it's about a family whose father, in the Locke family, the father is brutally killed, and the wife and the kids survive and move into this famous house. Actually, they moved from Seattle, which is kind of cool, and they move into this famous Locke house over in Massachusetts. And what's kind of special about this show and what draws you in is that there's a lot of fantasy and mysterious. They have these keys and these locks throughout the house, and they unlock different powers and dimensions. And so the kids discover all this, and it's all about finding out what's the history behind this house and why all these different locks exist and what their purpose is. So it's kind of cool. A little bit of fantasy, kind of a little bit of like Harry Potter-ish kind of stuff, yet teen drama. So it's perfect for kids. Not too childish, but not too mature, but right in that middle area. So it definitely connected well with my kids.
You know what I'll say? I've not seen Lock and Key, but listening to you talk about it makes me think of something else. This is a problem of where there's so many great shows today. Whenever I'm talking to someone and they're saying, "Oh yeah, I'm watching, you gotta watch it, it's so good." And I've learned where I think, okay, sounds great. And I just can't get to everything. There's too much content out there. So I do what I can. I try to pick things that I'm interested in, but I think they're making it faster than I'll ever be able to keep up. And it's so different than just a 2-hour movie. We're talking seasons of shows. So another thing I wanted to add, and this is something that maybe if we have any viewers that are in, I would say, the late teens care to comment, is that I have always gotten the impression that younger kids, I'd say like ages 15 to 19 or so, they do not have an interest in any episodic television at all. They don't watch it. I have never seen kids that age talk about it. I think there must be something to where maybe there's just too much commitment, or I don't know. I've just wondered why
my
that
daughter,
is.
My oldest daughter, Sophie, is 15, going on 16, and there's definitely episodic TV she loves to watch. So I don't know if maybe it changes as they get older, but she definitely has her favorites. So
okay, like Riverdale,
my 15-year-old. Riverdale, All American, another one I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So she has several shows that she's definitely fond of. So. But I don't know, maybe as they get older, they get too busy or something. But
yeah, that's good to hear.
At 15, there is.
I just feel like, conversations I have with people about what they're watching on Netflix, there always seem to be older people. So but again, I don't know a lot of high school kids right now. So I was more curious. So yeah. We know one 15-year-old's watching some stuff, so
yeah.
Anyone else, feel free to comment in. So another show that I am right in the middle of right now is called The Americans, and this is a show I'm watching with my wife. It's a story about a married couple who are Russian spies living in the United States in the 80s during the Cold War. And they are constantly trying to gather intelligence on what the military is doing or what the government is doing to give Russia the edge in a silent battle that's going on during the 80s. And if you're in the 80s, you kind of know what the Cold War is all about. It was basically just a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on where Russia and the United States were in a heavy battle to basically say, I think I'm more powerful than you. This was loosely based on a real-life discovery of Russian couples living in the United States. The funny part is the real Russian couples that lived in the United States were not very bright. They actually never found any intelligence. They never really got any information at all, and eventually they were just caught. But in the TV show, there's lots of violence. This is definitely not for kids. These Russian spies are pretty tech savvy, and it makes for some great entertainment. The neighbor across the street is an FBI agent who they're actually friends with, so they both have this double life that they don't know about. And overall, the family is just a great cast. They have a daughter and a son, terrific actors. We're in season 5 right now. It's a 6-season show, so it ends at the end of season 6, which was just about a year or two ago. And I'm truly enjoying it. I've been encouraging you to give it a shot.
It's on my to-watch list, for sure, the way you've described it. So 6 seasons. It's good to know. Actually, we should mention how many seasons there are. I think I said about Ozarks, they just released the 3rd season. Lock and Key is only 1 season. So it's easy if you jump in now. You don't have to watch too much. It's one short little season. And then 6 for the Americans, right? And that brings me to my next Netflix show, and this one is called Narcos. And this is there's actually 2 seasons in Narcos, and then there's a new season of what they call Narcos Mexico. But Narcos, the original Narcos show, was all about the drug dealer, drug kingpin Pablo Escobar, who worked out of Colombia and was responsible for the huge drug trade between the 70s and the 90s, particularly cocaine importing from Colombia into the United States. And this is what you'd expect from any type of drug drama. There's going to be a lot of violence, a lot of language, a lot of nudity and sexual situations. Definitely not for the kids unless they're very mature and can handle that. But what I liked about this was it's based on based on a true story. And what I thought was unique is how they did it was they obviously took dramatic liberty to recreate scenes, but they would incorporate actual news footage of the time to incorporate. Whenever something important happened, they would cut to actual news footage and basically kind of remind you what the real story was, and then go back to the fictional story, not fictional, but the narrative story. So I thought that was cool how basically they're telling the real story, but just reminding you that this is real, but here's our dramatized version. And they do a great job of creating this hard to believe this happened at the time, because this guy had so much power but yet so much corruption. But just like all great drug kingpins, at some point they rise to the top and eventually they fall. So that's Narcos on Netflix. Mike, what you got next on your list?
Well, the next one on my list is one that I would like to think is also on your list, which is The Walking Dead. Is The Walking Dead on your list?
You know what? It's not. But it's not because it's not a show I don't enjoy, nor that it's deserving of it. I'm just actually not really watching it right now. So I'm a little bit on a Walking Dead hiatus, but it's definitely been a show I've been watching over the last several years. But let's talk about it.
Well, The Walking Dead takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where zombies have taken over, and they're called walkers, and the humans that have been left are struggling in a fight for survival. And they're not just fighting the zombies, they're fighting other bad people, factions, you can almost say, of different types of groups of people. That new leaders emerge, and it's a constant struggle for survival. And I have enjoyed the show immensely, and I'm glad that they're continuing on. I think it's just great TV.
I don't know how many seasons it's been going on now. It feels like forever, but
I think about 9.
I've been definitely watching since the beginning. I've had my kind of points where I've kind of paused, took a break, and naturally the seasons also take their own breaks. But I think you haven't quite caught up to where I'm at. I'm pretty up to date, and I think you're still catching up. It's a great show, and the characters, we've lost some along the way, we've gained some, and definitely the story has changed, especially with some of the main characters departing. And, I guess in a series this long, it gets sometimes to a point where does it get to a point where it starts to feel a little bit tired, because in the beginning it's all fresh and you're learning everything about the world and everything's kind of on the rise. And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, we've kind of been through almost every scenario and situation with this group. And the danger is how do you not let it get too tired. And I think where they've done a good job is they've created it to where the zombies are just sort of part of the universe, part of the world. But where the real drama is the battle between the humans, the different groups that feud and get internal battles, and this group against this group. And the zombies are almost second nature. They're almost secondary characters.
The zombies are the random element that just kind of comes in and messes things up.
Yeah, exactly. Where at the beginning, they're like the thing. After a while, they're just sort of like, okay, we know you're out there. I've starting to feel a little bit like it's lost some of its edge for me, to be honest with you, in the latest where it's gone. I'm not going to go into any spoilers because you haven't gotten there yet. I'm still watching, though, just because I feel like I've spent this much time, I've got to see it to the end. I can't spend 9 years of my life or 9 seasons of my life watching and not finishing it to the end. So it's still good. It's just I feel like it's not. Some things have lost some of what they had back in the early years. It's tough to do that many years of a show. So.
Well, what else you got?
Anything? All right. Though this goes into more of a documentary style, this is a show called All or Nothing on Amazon Prime. And what I love about it is it's actually a documentary, a multi-episodes documentary where they choose an NFL team and they focus on that team's entire season. So they've done 5 of these, and they've also done some, I think, soccer teams as well as a college team, but I'm more interested in the NFL, of course, being a Seahawks fan. So they started this in 2016 with the Arizona Cardinals, and then they did the Rams in 2017, the Cowboys in 18, the Panthers in 2019, and then this past season was the Eagles. And what I love about this show is it's like the show Hard Knocks, and that's where they have cameras everywhere, inside the meeting rooms, at the practices, obviously at the games, but it really gives you an inside glimpse at what goes on behind the scenes. And if you've seen Hard Knocks, you know what I'm talking about. And what's nice about this, being that it's on Amazon Prime, is they leave all the swear words, everything raw, so there's no hiding the coach behind proper, PC language. I mean, you hear everything that's talked about. So it gives you a real inside look at what goes on in the ebb and flows of a football season. And of course, for me, the fact that a couple of these teams played the Seahawks, like the Cardinals, we play them twice a year, the Rams twice a year, the Eagles, we played them twice a year last year, once in the regular season and once in the playoffs. So the fact that my Seahawks get to appear in there is great. And I'm just waiting for the day they do an All or Nothing about the Seattle Seahawks. I would love that. But at this point, I just got to watch other teams and see my team appear on there. But it's great. If you're a football fan, sports fan, got to watch it. All or Nothing on Amazon Prime. What you got?
So I have 2 left on my list, and both of them we're getting into something that could be more for a younger audience as well as an older audience. So this one actually is one that I have tried to talk you into taking a look at, and I think because your girls have no interest, therefore you have no interest. It's called A Series of Unfortunate Events, and It's on Netflix, and I'm a visual effects artist, and one thing I love about this show, and there's 3 seasons, is that the whole movie is a visual effects feast for the eyes. Everything is hyper color, saturation, lots of CG rendered environments, set extensions, everything, the whole world that they've created it's hyper real. But then you get into the storytelling. This is based on books that are written extremely well and have really eccentric, different characters. Neil Patrick Harris, who, if you're our age, we know him as Doogie Howser from the show on the 80s. He plays Count Olaf and is terrific. He's entertaining. I wasn't sure how he was going to do because, of course, there was a feature film called A Series of Unfortunate Events with Jim Carrey as Count Olaf, and I like that movie too. But Neil Patrick Harris took Count Olaf and made him a very memorable, entertaining, unpredictable character and funny. And he's constantly wearing different disguises, trying to keep up with the kids that are the main stars of the story. And I think this is a great series, and I really don't know anyone else who has ever seen this. Anyone I've talked to, I've recommended it, and I think some people think, that looks like it's for little tiny kids. It's really not. I'd say it's for kids aged, 9, 10 and up. And as an adult, I enjoyed it just the same. So I highly recommend this series. And the reason I'm emphasizing highly is because I don't know anybody who's actually seen it.
Well, I've run across it on my Netflix, recommended videos. I've brought it up to my kids. Hey, you guys want to give this a try? And they're kind of, looks kind of boring. So I have not given it a try, so I cannot speak to what I think about that show. But it's on my list of things to check out someday.
Very low on his list.
There's a lot of stuff ahead of it, but I'm not giving up on it yet. So, well, that brings, you got two more. I got one left here.
Well, now I have one more.
Oh,
now I have one more.
Okay, well, I'll do my one here, then I'll get to yours. So my final one on my must-see list is 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. And this is a 3 seasons show, very controversial when it came out a few years ago. But it's basically the story about a teenage girl named Hannah Baker, and she basically commits suicide. But she makes these tapes explaining, and they're actually cassette tapes, old school. And she records these tapes, and every episode is one tape. And she talks about what led to her wanting to kill herself. And each tape focuses either around a certain person in her school or a certain situation, but usually there's one person who's like the central character about each of these reasons why this happened. And this is a tough one as far as who should watch this. We actually tried to start watching it the first year it came out with my kids. That was, again, like 3 years ago, and it was just a little too heavy. It was a little too heavy for Vanessa to watch. But this time around, I thought, okay, they're a little older, they've seen a few more things, and they're a little more, obviously, more exposed to the real world. And this is one of those shows where it's definitely there's some, sexual situations, lots of language, there's some violence. So it's kind of on the edge where some kids probably won't be able to handle it. But if you can, I think it does a really good job of a good way to introduce watching it. And I would highly recommend, if you're a parent, to watch it with your kid, because then you can talk about these things. And it's a really good way to talk about peer pressure, depression, suicide, just dealing with things which our kids will someday, probably, maybe not on that level of the TV show, but on some level we'll have to deal with something similar. Boys, drugs, whatever, feeling left out, isolation. These are all real things that I think it's nice to have something that can give you a starting point to have a conversation about it. So I'm glad that we got to watch it. We did get through all 3 shows. The first 2 were really good. The first one deals with the tapes that she made. The second one's more like the courtroom drama after it, but reveals more depth. And the third one was not as good. It really kind of goes away from the entire suicide story and focuses on the murder of a different kid. But it's still, all in all, the first 2 series or episodes for sure is good to watch when you feel the time is right to discuss and have this type of topic come into your home. It's a good way to have a good conversation about it, and it's very well done in a unique storytelling mode. What's your final show, Mike?
So the last one on my list is a show that I think covers all the bases. It takes place in the 80s. It's about kids that are in charge and handling things on their own and making things happen. It's sci-fi, supernatural. You gotta know what I'm talking about. It's on my shirt, the Palace Arcade. Where is the Palace Arcade? What show is that from?
Stranger Things, baby. Stranger
Things. You can't go wrong with this series. Now, this is definitely for, I would say, kids 13 and up. But again, it's got 3 seasons. I know season 4 is being worked on right now. It's been great all the way through. Very enjoyable. I love the 80s. They reference the Duffer Brothers who make this. They reference that deep 80s stuff that we know about. And so it's not only great for us, now we get since our kids like Stranger Things, we can get them into what we were into in a way that it'd be hard. Imagine sitting Sophie and Vanessa down and saying, hey, I'm going to talk to you guys about Dungeons and Dragons. It's really cool. They'd be like, But then when you watch it in Stranger Things, it is cool. Mm-hmm. It's cool. So what do you have to say about Stranger Things, Norm?
This would have definitely been on the top part of my list if we were watching it right now. And the only reason it's not on my list is because it's being worked on. We're between seasons and it's not being watched right now because we already watched the shows already. So this is definitely one of the big hits in our house. My kids watched it, I think, a couple different times. They loved it. They can't wait for the next season to come out. And I can't wait for the next season to come out. For us, it hits so many different chords. And the fact that my children love it as much is even a bonus. But it's like you said, it's the 80s. It references so many childhood things that we grew up with. And it just, as filmmakers, you and I, it would have been a dream to have worked on a show like this.
Yeah.
I'm almost jealous that we didn't come up with this idea because it got everything you'd want, from kids to the 80s references to some suspense to action to some sci-fi. It's kind of got everything, and comedy too. So it's just such a fun ride. But great family show. And it'd be on the top of my list if we were watching it right now. It's just we're kind of on a break on it. So.
It would be so neat just to be able to walk around the Starcourt Mall set and just soak in how they recreated a mall from the 80s down to every little detail that could be there. And even in the Starcourt Mall, they had a Baskin & Robbins knockoff ice cream shop called Scoops Ahoy. And what was so neat is when season 3 came out, Baskin & Robbins actually served Scoops Ahoy themed ice cream dishes, and if you went there you could get a Scoops Ahoy t-shirt. So I got one for Brett, and it's definitely one of his favorite shirts to wear.
That's just one of the many things that sort of spurred like a cultural sort of revival of things like that. But I think the other thing is that the music in the show, obviously being this period piece in the 80s, songs that were shown in the show, my kids got to be exposed to them. And one of the ones that stands out is Neverending Story. Now, don't know if you guys saw that movie, but definitely a childhood 80s movie for us. But Mike used to have this dance when we were roommates when the Never-Ending Story, and it was just hilarious. And we
dropped the shoulder.
We made fun of that all the time. But my kids, who I would never get them to listen, could never listen to that song. All of a sudden, they like the song because it was cool. In a cool show. And that's what movies can do. They could bridge that gap between periods if done in a cool way. And that's what's so awesome about Stranger Things. Yep.
So with that, I believe it's time to get into the surprise, right? You're finished?
Yep. One little honorable mention I wanted to say. Again, between seasons, but another show. This is on YouTube Premium. Cobra Kai. Speaking of 80s Renaissance, Cobra Kai, I know this is up there too. You got me watching this one. Yep. But Cobra Kai, it's basically the Karate Kid in modern day eras, where Johnny, the rival of Daniel-san, are now adults with their own kids, and it's kind of like where they would be if you set them in current times, with drama with their kids, the battles between them as adults, and it's a fantastic show. So honorable mention, Cobra Kai. I know it's got to be pretty high on your list as well.
And I don't think a lot of people have seen Cobra Kai because to see it you have to subscribe to YouTube Premium.
Right.
And I feel like people don't kind of look at YouTube Premium as a choice. They're more looking at Netflix, CBS All Access, the others.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you have to get YouTube Premium, because if it was on Netflix, a lot more people would have seen it. But it's a good show. Maybe if you just get it for a month and binge watch it, it's worth it. It's a really, really good show if you like the Karate Kid. And there's a lot of back and forth references from the Karate Kid to the modern show. So if you like Karate Kid, you'll love Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I highly recommend that show.
The surprise, let's see it.
So the surprise, I was kind of ending with Stranger Things because that's what my surprise is about. And, again, my love of physical media. So I actually have in my possession the Stranger Things 4K Blu-ray disc set, and it comes in this really neat VHS pack that is designed to look like a tape. It's just great. You open it up, and it's like a magnetic front. There we go. So you open it up, and it's cool. Got the discs in there. And neat little labels, stuff like that. So
that's one of the best packages, Blu-ray disc packages that they've ever come up with. The whole VHS thing is awesome.
And that's season 1. And they also did season 2. And in season 2, they did another VHS type slipcase, and it's kind of more of the type of VHS you'd see in the rental store of old. And inside, it's got another type of VHS case looking thing. It even has, if you reach inside here and pull out, it's got like fun little pictures. Oops, upside down there. 80s style. It's just great. Great stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it when they do things like this. I wish it was done more often, which is why I'm a big supporter of special edition type physical media launches. That's the only way you can get them to keep doing neat things like this is to go out and buy them. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the best packages and for one of the best shows ever. So, all right, cool. Well, that's it. That wraps up our 5 TV shows you have to watch. I'm Norb.
And I'm Mike.
And we're The Watchmen.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching The Watchmen.
Please click on here to watch other episodes, and be sure to hit that like button too.
And please subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll always be alerted to any future episodes.
It really helps us out, and we appreciate it.
We'll see you next time. And remember, we'll be watching.